Hey parents, Kevin Nunnery, high school pastor, here with a series preview. As we enter into March, we'll be kicking off a 3-week series called Testify. Probably that term conjures up the image of someone being on a witness stand and swearing to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And we count on those who are testifying to share the truth, yet we live in a world where truth has become increasingly relative. How do we as Christ followers testify to the truth, the good news of who Jesus is and what He's done? Are we confident in our ability to share the gospel? Does the thought of doing so make us tense up or tighten up just thinking about it? Our goal in this series is to equip our students to leave the church building and go be the church, testifying to the goodness of God. Our theme verse for this series will be 1 Peter 3:15, which says, "Instead, you must worship Christ as Lord of your life. And if someone asks you about your hope as a believer, always be ready to explain it." We'll walk through each week thinking through those classic deduction questions: who, what, when, where, and why. On March 7th, week 1, we'll cover the who and the what. Who should testify? It's not a job left to quote-unquote professional Christians. We are called a royal priesthood, a holy nation. All of us who are new creations in Christ are called to testify to His glory and His goodness. The famous preacher Charles Spurgeon once said, "Every Christian is either a missionary or an imposter." And then what should we share? You don't have to have the deepest reservoir of biblical knowledge or be able to accurately exegete Levitical law. We share our story, who we were before we encountered Jesus and how He has transformed us. Our primary passage for this week will be John 9, the story of the man born blind. And coming out of this week, you might ask your student, how can you tell that Jesus has transformed your life? On March 14th, we'll tackle the when and the where. Our aim this week is to help our students see that anywhere and everywhere we go, we should be ready, willing, and able to share about Christ. We don't have to be standing in a pulpit preaching or overseas on a mission trip. 2 Timothy 4:2 says to always be ready whether the time is favorable or not. And while we should be able to articulate the gospel story and how it has impacted our story, we should always be mindful of just living a life that reflects Christ. At home, at school, when we're stuck in traffic on the interstate, when we think no one is watching, and when it feels like everyone is. Our primary passage this week will be Acts 8:26 through 40, where we see the disciple Philip have a life-changing encounter with the Ethiopian eunuch. And coming out of this week, you might ask your student, how confident are you in your ability to share Jesus? The final week of our series will be March 21st. We'll deal with why. Why do we share? What is the goal? It's that God would be glorified and that many would come to know Him. This week's teaching time will be fairly brief as we're going to devote the bulk of our time together into putting into practice what we've discussed. Staff and small group leaders will testify from the stage in front of everyone, and then during an extended small group session, students will have the chance to share their story with their peers. Coming out of this week, you might ask your student to share their testimony with you, and you may just have the opportunity to share yours with them as well. We're looking forward to our series Testify, March 7th, 14th, and 21st, and we hope that your student will be able to join us. And if they're not, they can find the message on our podcast, which is Crave High School Ministry, found pretty much anywhere podcasts can be found. We love your student, we love your family, we're praying for you. See you soon.